It is a very exciting time to be an Orlando Magic fan. Not only are we expecting Anthony Parker, Jeff Weltman, and the entire Orlando Magic front office to be aggressive this summer, helping make this team better. After they won 47 games, they were a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, and they nearly won a first-round playoff series over the Cleveland Cavaliers. Expect this front office to be aggressive not only through free agency but also through the trade market and potentially giving away some draft capital in order to make this roster better. And we're going to be talking about a tier full of players that I think the Orlando Magic should target this offseason. Now, obviously, it's unrealistic that we're going to be able to get every single one of these guys, but I'm going to go through a tier style of tier 3, 2, and 1 of guys that I want to see Orlando get. Tier 3 being supplemental role players, 2 being very good players who I think could help make an immediate impact, and tier 1 being guys that are an absolute unrealistic grand slam if the Orlando Magic can acquire them this offseason. But let's talk about some important offseason dates for this Orlando Magic team and really just the NBA as a whole. So as I'm recording this video, the Boston Celtics just won the NBA Finals last night, which means the day after the NBA Finals, teams can begin negotiating with their own free agents, which for the Magic, they have a handful of their own free agents. They've got 4 unrestricted free agents, guys like Markelle Fultz, Chuma Okeke, Goga Bitadze, and Gary Harris. They also have 3 restricted free agents in guys like Admiral Schofield, Trevelyan Queen, and Kevon Harris. Lastly, they've got 2 guys on a club option, Mo Wagner and Joe Ingles. And lastly, they've got Jonathan Isaac on a $17.4 million contract, which is non-guaranteed. The Orlando Magic are expected to have $50 to $60 million this offseason, and it's going to be very interesting to see who they retain and what kind of money moves they're going to make in order to free up some of that cap. Now, as of July 1st, that is when the free agency moratorium will begin, which is essentially a verbal agreement that will last until July 6th with pending free agents that are not on your own team, which means that you can start having verbal agreements. But as of July 6th, everything can come into fruition, which means that each NBA team may begin signing free agents to contracts as of 12:01 p.m. Eastern on July 6th, which could be a huge day for this Orlando Magic team. Now, before I go ahead and start getting into the tiers and talking about a bunch of guys that I want to see the Orlando Magic target this offseason, if you guys have not seen, I already made a video talking about if the Orlando Magic should pursue Klay Thompson this week, and I talked about 5 specific players I want the Orlando Magic to target this offseason. If you guys have not seen that, I will go ahead and link to those videos up above for you guys to go ahead and check out. But let's go ahead and get into tier 3. Now, like I mentioned earlier, tier 3 is going to be a bunch of guys who are going to be serviceable. You could probably get at a very reasonable price, and they're going to be supplementary role players who could come in and make an impact on this team. Here's 5 guys. I've got Luke Kennard, Gary Trent Jr., Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Malik Beasley, and Tyus Jones. Now, Luke Kennard does have a $14.8 million club option with the Memphis Grizzlies, so we'll see if Memphis wants to pick that up. Gary Trent Jr. is an unrestricted free agent. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has a $15.4 million player option. Malik Beasley and Tyus Jones are both unrestricted free agents as well. Now, the reoccurring theme in tier 3, really excluding Tyus Jones, who I think is a very safe and serviceable point guard. I don't believe that he's a starting caliber point guard on a championship caliber team. Maybe he could be if the Orlando Magic continue to ascend, but a lot of these guys, Luke Kennard, Gary Trent, KCP, and Malik Beasley, all of these guys are 3-point specialists. Maybe Gary Trent didn't have the best of seasons. Maybe KCP can be a little bit inconsistent with his role in Denver. But a guy like Luke Kennard, this is an absolute sniper. Malik Beasley, we saw he struggled in LA, but really played a lot better in Milwaukee. He obviously played very good in Utah before going to LA. A lot of these guys are going to help tremendously with Orlando's deficiencies, 3-point shooting, not just in the regular season, but even in the postseason. You saw that's where the Magic struggled the most, and you can get a sniper like this. You can get a reliable point guard and a guy like Tyus Jones who could come in and really fill that void in that role, help run the offense. He is a very underrated passer. I really like all of these guys as serviceable, rotational pieces that could come in and help make a solid impact immediately on this Orlando Magic team. Now getting into tier 2, let me talk about 5 players who I think are a little bit better in terms of their talent, their production, and what they could bring to this Orlando Magic team. Give me Isaiah Hartenstein, Klay Thompson, OG Anunoby, Malik Monk, or Buddy Hield. Now, all of these guys are unrestricted free agents, excluding OG Anunoby, who has a $19.9 million player option with the New York Knicks, but it is rumored to be that OG Anunoby is not happy with the New York Knicks' offer and that he's likely going to test out free agency. I can guarantee you, whoever is going to throw the most money at OG Anunoby, and it would be wonderful if the Magic did, a guy who is a terrific perimeter defender, and you really see him coming into his own offensively, if the Magic wanted to throw a bag at him. But his teammate, Isaiah Hartenstein, the Magic could definitely use another center, another big, maybe make Wendell a 4, which I think he looks a lot more comfortable in, and Isaiah Hartenstein really proved his worth this season with the New York Knicks. Now, Klay Thompson, I'm not going to go too far into depth with him. We obviously know he had a lot of career lows this past season, but nonetheless, if you want to see more Klay Thompson, I will go ahead and link to that video up above. And the fact of the matter is, even if Klay Thompson is not knocking down triples, the matter of fact is he is a threat. Klay Thompson is a threat from the perimeter, knocking down 268 triples last season, 4th in the association, and he was number 3 in the association in three-pointers made per game off of catch and shoot, only behind Dante DiVincenzo and Lauri Markkanen. Klay Thompson could bring a lot to this Orlando Magic team, especially with his championship pedigree. Now, the last two guys, Buddy Hield, one of the most underrated three-point shooters of all time, would do wonders for this Magic team because he can play not only as a catch-and-shoot three-point specialist, he can move it without the ball, come off a pick and roll. Buddy Hield can do it all. And lastly, a guy like Malik Monk, he obviously was the 6th Man of the Year runner-up this past season for the Sacramento Kings, averaged a career high off the bench for the Kings, over 15 points a game, 5.5 assists. Malik Monk was nothing short of spectacular, and I had an opportunity to talk to Coach Mosley about Malik Monk when the Sacramento Kings came into town, and listen to what Coach Mosley had stated about Malik Monk and his production when he was asked about it from me. Jamal Mosley had stated, his ability to score, to generate quick offense, whether that's pushing the pace, stepping into the 3, or attacking the basket, he opens up for a lot of those guys on the floor when he's out there as well. And if you ask me, I think Jamal Mosley really wants Malik Monk here. Now getting into tier 1, guys who I think are absolutely unrealistic, but guys that I would still love to see the Orlando Magic target this offseason. Let's get into them. DeJounte Murray or Trae Young, Collin Sexton, Nick Claxton, Anthony Simons, and Paul George. Now, a majority of these names, excluding Collin Sexton and Trae Young, I've already talked about fully in depth. I'm not going to go too in depth with them. If you want to see that video, like I mentioned earlier, 5 players the Magic should target this offseason, I'll link to it up above. But just to be brief with this, DeJounte Murray is going to be entering the first year of a 4-year deal. So not only are you going to have to trade away capital to get him, you're going to have to be willing to take on that contract. Similar with a guy like Trae Young, one of the best offensive-centric guards in the game. Yes, we know he's a defensive liability, but the Orlando Magic are stout defensively. You would make up for it with his offensive production and his ability to space the floor and run the offense and help alleviate that pressure off of Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. Trae Young is in the 3rd year of a 5-year deal. Collin Sexton still has 2 more years left on his deal, but the problem is the Utah Jazz are going to be looking to move off of potentially Collin Sexton, who might be taking away a lot of reps from a guy like Keontae George, who the Orlando Magic could have drafted last season. And when you talk about a guy like Collin Sexton, the young bull, this is a guy who plays with his absolute heart on his sleeve, similar to Jalen Suggs. I think he's actually a better offensive player than Jalen Suggs. He runs an offense much better. He gets downhill with efficiency and at ease. Collin Sexton is a very good player. He's really had an emergence in Utah, and he would be a terrific fit with the culture and the defensive identity here in Orlando. And then the other 3 names that I mentioned, Nick Claxton's an unrestricted free agent, Anthony Simons, he's under contract for the next 2 years, and then Paul George on a $48.8 million player option. He's likely going to opt out of that contract and test out free agency. I would love for Orlando to get him, bring him in, be another great 3-and-D forward on the wing that could help really pave the way for Banchero and for Wagner. Anthony Simons, the hometown kid, bring him back. He's got 2 more years left on his deal, and Portland might be looking to move on from him because they just drafted Scoot Henderson last season and Shaedon Sharpe. And then with Nick Claxton, a guy who just turned 25 years of age in April, he's expected to get $80 to $100 million this offseason. He is by far, to me, the best and most versatile big man in the free agency class over Jonas Valanciunas and Isaiah Hartenstein. Look, if the Orlando Magic can get any of these guys I've talked about in the tiers, but especially in tier 1, DeJounte Murray, Trae Young, Anthony Simons, Collin Sexton, or Paul George, I would be absolutely ecstatic if they got these guys. And I think it's an exciting time in general just to be an Orlando Magic fan. But Magic fans, I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. What did you guys make about my tiers 3, 2, and 1, about the guys that I would like to see Orlando target this offseason? And who do you realistically think the Magic will acquire this offseason, not just in free agency, but potentially through the trade market? I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. But Magic fans, if you guys appreciate the work and the content that I make here on YouTube, make sure you guys go ahead and drop me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Orlando Magic content that we do here on YouTube. And make sure that you guys also go ahead and follow me, Brett James, and Orlando Magic HQ on all of our socials. The link tree will be in the description down below so that you guys can go ahead and check that out. But Magic fans, thanks again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, aka BJ, I'm out, y'all. And like always, let's go Magic.